The week after Brookfield's victory, the operations department fell into a strange rhythm. On the surface, things carried on as usual: emails, meetings, late nights at glowing screens, but beneath, an unspoken war brewed. Madison Cole had begun to sense it. The polite nods, the hesitant applause, the way employees looked past her toward Lauren whenever decisions grew complicated. She could feel her authority slipping through her manicured fingers, and it infuriated her. One Wednesday morning, she decided to strike. "Lauren," Madison called sweetly across the office, her tone ringing false cheer. "Can I see you in the conference room for a moment?" "Just you." The staff looked up from their desks. Some exchanged wary glances. A private summons never boded well. Lauren rose, calm as ever, binder in hand. She walked into the conference room where Madison sat waiting, her phone face down on the table, a stack of papers beside her. "I have an incredible opportunity for you," Madison began, her smile too wide, too bright. "The CEO of Solaritech is interested in a full systems integration with us. Huge contract. A game-changer for Colestone." Lauren's brow furrowed slightly. Solaritech was a notoriously demanding partner, difficult timelines, strict compliance requirements. Such a project would normally take 6 months of planning. "I've already told them," Madison continued, "that we can deliver the integration plan in 3 weeks. The words hit like a thunderclap. Lauren's stomach dropped. 3 weeks? Impossible. She inhaled slowly. That scope requires a quarter of preparation at minimum. Integration across Solara's systems is. That's why I want you to lead it, Madison interrupted smoothly, sliding the papers across the table. If anyone can pull off a miracle, it's you. I've told Uncle Richard how much faith I have in your abilities. He's thrilled. Lauren glanced down at the paper's half-baked notes, vague outlines, buzzwords scrawled in Madison's looping handwriting. Nothing resembling a real plan. It was obvious. This wasn't an assignment. It was a noose. If she refused, Madison could spin it as defiance. If she failed, Madison could brand her as incapable. Either way, her reputation would take the hit. Lauren met Madison's eyes. You've set a timeline that risks the company's credibility. Solara won't tolerate failure. Madison leaned back, crossing her arms. Then don't fail. Or maybe, she tilted her head, her smile brittle. Maybe you're not as indispensable as everyone thinks. The air between them sharpened. Lauren held her gaze, refusing to flinch. I'll deliver what you've promised, she said finally, her voice even, steady as steel. But the responsibility for that promise rests with you. Madison's smile widened in triumph. Of course. Teamwork, right? When Lauren left the conference room, her colleagues avoided her eyes. They had heard enough through the glass walls to understand what had just happened. Peter caught her arm in the hallway. 3 weeks? That's suicide. I know, Lauren replied, her binder pressed tight to her chest. But if I don't try, she'll win anyway. The next days blurred into an exhausting grind. Lauren built her team like a commander assembling troops for an unwinnable battle. She divided tasks, assigned research, and worked 16-hour days piecing together a plan that might pass as feasible. Her desk became a fortress of papers and screens. Coffee cups multiplied. She barely saw her apartment. Her world narrowed to deadlines and calculations, the relentless ticking of a clock counting down to disaster. But Lauren wasn't alone. Quietly, her allies rallied. Sarah brought her data late at night, whispering, "We're with you." Peter triple-checked projections, muttering, "If anyone can do this, it's you." Even the junior analyst volunteered to run models until dawn. They weren't doing it for Madison. They were doing it for Lauren, for the leader they trusted, even without a title. But Madison hovered, waiting for cracks. She appeared in doorways with faux-concerned smiles, asking, "How's it going? Need more time?" She CC'd Richard on emails questioning Lauren's progress. She stopped by desks to remind people who really ran the department. By the second week, the pressure was unbearable. Lauren worked until her vision blurred, her hands trembling from exhaustion. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw spreadsheets bleeding into deadlines, numbers collapsing like falling dominoes. Yet something burned in her chest stronger than fatigue. A defiance, a refusal to give Madison the satisfaction of watching her break. The night before the deadline, Lauren sat in the empty office, city lights flickering beyond the windows. Her binder lay open before her, hundreds of pages filled with meticulous detail. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't even realistic long-term. But it was bulletproof enough to survive Madison's trap. She leaned back in her chair, the weight of exhaustion pressing down like stone. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself a small smile. Let Madison take the credit. Let her prance in front of Richard, bragging about her leadership. It didn't matter. Because Lauren had survived the impossible again. But as she closed the binder, her smile faded. How many more traps would she endure? How many more victories would she hand over, invisible, unacknowledged, stolen? She clenched her fists. No, this couldn't last forever. Madison thought she had cornered her. But in truth, every trap, every impossible demand, every reckless mistake, it was all building a case. A mountain of evidence waiting for the right moment. Lauren wasn't just surviving anymore. She was preparing for war. The Solara Tech presentation was supposed to be Madison's moment of triumph. The boardroom was packed, executives, department heads, and even Richard himself seated at the head of the table, his silver hair gleaming under the recessed lights. Lauren sat 3 chairs down, her binder open in front of her. Her work, 3 weeks of sleepless nights, frantic calculations, and endless revisions, lay within those pages. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to keep the company's promise intact. Madison stood at the front, clicking through slides she hadn't created, smiling as though she were the architect of it all. As you can see, Madison said, gesturing at the graph Lauren had built, our integration plan will roll out in phases, ensuring minimal disruption. It's bold, it's innovative, and it positions Coldstone as Solara Tech's most trusted partner moving forward. Executives nodded, murmuring approval. Lauren sat in silence, her pen gripped tightly between her fingers. Each nod felt like a blade, each murmur another twist of stolen credit. Then it happened. One of Solara's executives leaned forward, his brow furrowed. This plan is impressive, but the timeline seems ambitious. Who specifically will be accountable for hitting these milestones? The room stilled. Madison's smile faltered only slightly. Then, with theatrical ease, she turned toward Lauren. Lauren Tran, she said brightly. She's been leading the charge. If there are questions about the details, she's the one to answer. Dozens of eyes swiveled toward Lauren. Her chest tightened. This was it, the trap closing. Madison had paraded her work as her own, but the moment accountability came, she tossed the responsibility like a grenade into Lauren's lap. Lauren cleared her throat, forcing her voice steady. We've built the milestones to be aggressive but achievable, provided that Solara maintains open communication and timely feedback. The risk is high, but so is the potential payoff. With full cooperation, we can deliver. The executive nodded slowly, still unconvinced. But Madison seized the moment. You see, she said sweetly, her smile returning. Even Lauren admits it's risky. We'll do our best, of course, but if adjustments need to be made, I trust Lauren will take ownership. The words echoed like a verdict. Ownership. Responsibility. Blame. Richard remained silent at the head of the table, his face unreadable. Lauren felt the floor tilt beneath her. She had carried the department on her back, pulled off 2 miracles in 2 months, and this was her reward, to be thrown under the bus in front of executives and clients while her CEO sat quietly, complicit in his niece's games. After the meeting, the boardroom emptied in a flurry of polite chatter. Madison lingered near Richard, her laughter too loud, her hand brushing his arm as though sealing her victory. Lauren closed her binder with trembling hands. Peter approached cautiously. You saved us again, he whispered. But they'll make you the scapegoat if this goes south. I know, Lauren said softly. Her throat burned. That evening, she sat alone in her office long after the others had gone. The city glittered outside, mocking her with its endless lights. Her reflection stared back from the glass, tired eyes, tight jaw, a woman at the edge of breaking. She thought of Richard's words weeks earlier. Don't let jealousy ruin your legacy. Jealousy. He had no idea. This wasn't envy. This was betrayal carved deep, betrayal by the company she had built her life around. For the first time, the thought slipped in, quiet but sharp. Maybe I should leave. Maybe I should walk away and let them drown in the mess they've created. She sat with it, letting the idea wash over her. Freedom. Peace. No more humiliation. No more invisible labor. But then she thought of her team. Peter, Sarah, the junior analyst who had stayed late night after night, loyal not to Madison but to her. She thought of the clients who trusted her word more than Madison's jargon. She couldn't abandon them. Not yet. The anger simmered, solidifying into something harder, sharper. She had spent months surviving, keeping her head down, hoping fairness would eventually win. But fairness was a luxury Coldstone didn't have. If she wanted justice, she would have to take it. Lauren pulled open her desk drawer and withdrew a small, leather-bound notebook. She flipped it open to a blank page, her pen poised. Slowly, deliberately, she began to write. Not reports. Not deliverables. Evidence. She listed every promise Madison had made, every reckless deadline, every lie she had spun. She attached names, dates, emails. She documented everything. This wasn't a journal. It was a weapon. By the time she closed the notebook, her hands had stopped shaking. She wasn't breaking. She was changing. Madison thought she had humiliated her. Richard thought silence would bury her. But they had just given Lauren the clarity she needed. The war hadn't started yet. But it would. And when it did, she would be ready. The Monday after the Solara Tech meeting, the operations department was quiet in a way that felt unnatural. Phones rang, keyboards clicked, but the air was heavy, like everyone was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Lauren felt it too. Every step through the office carried the weight of eyes watching her. Some with sympathy. Some with fear. Some with that careful neutrality people wore when they knew a storm was coming, but didn't want to be caught in it. Madison, of course, floated above it all. She strutted through the department, her heels striking the floor like a drumbeat of confidence. She stopped at desks to toss out hollow praise, loved your notes in that last meeting, or great energy on the call today. Always too loud, too performative, like she was campaigning for an office she already held. And Richard? Silent. He hadn't so much as glanced at Lauren since the presentation. By noon, Lauren was buried in reports, the numbers blurring on the screen. Her body was exhausted, her spirit worse. She had spent weeks pulling off the impossible only to be framed as the liability. The weight of it pressed on her chest until her breaths came shallow. That was when her phone buzzed. Message from Evelyn Grant. Lauren blinked. Evelyn was a board member, one of the few who had been with Coldstone since its expansion. Sharp, composed, and feared in boardrooms, she was not the kind of person who texted department staff. Can you meet me in my office? 15 minutes. Lauren's pulse quickened. She read it twice before standing, clutching her binder as if it could shield her from whatever this was. Evelyn's office was on the top floor, far above the buzzing cubicles of operations. The space smelled faintly of leather and cedar. Bookshelves lined the walls, filled with annual reports and law texts. Evelyn herself sat behind a sleek glass desk, her silver hair pulled into a severe bun, glasses perched on her nose. Sit, she said, gesturing to the chair opposite her. Lauren obeyed, her binder balanced on her lap. You wanted to see me? Evelyn removed her glasses, folding them carefully. Her gaze was sharp, weighing every detail of Lauren's face. You've had a difficult month. It wasn't a question. Lauren hesitated. It's been challenging. That's one word for it, Evelyn said dryly. She leaned back in her chair, steepling her fingers. I've been watching. Madison's appointment. The deadlines. The projects that should have collapsed but didn't, because of you. Lauren's chest tightened. I've just been doing my job. Evelyn's mouth curved faintly, not quite a smile. No, Lauren. You've been doing Madison's job. And Richard's, when he refuses to see what's happening. The words hit like cold water. For weeks, Lauren had felt isolated, gaslit by silence. And here, finally, someone had spoken the truth aloud. Evelyn's voice softened, though her eyes stayed hard. You're not alone. There are people on this board who see what's happening. Madison is bleeding the department. Richard's blind loyalty to her is damaging the company. If something doesn't change, clients will walk and shareholders will revolt. Lauren's pulse raced. She leaned forward, her voice low. Then why hasn't anyone acted? Because timing matters, Evelyn replied. If we move too soon, Richard will shield Madison and crush anyone who challenges him. But if we wait until the damage is undeniable, until the numbers expose her, he won't be able to protect her anymore. Silence stretched between them. Lauren's fingers tightened on her binder. And where do I come in? Evelyn studied her carefully. You've already come in. You're the only reason operations hasn't collapsed. You've built credibility with clients, respect among staff. People trust you even when they don't say it aloud. When the time comes, you'll need to decide, will you step forward or will you let the company fall with Richard's pride? Lauren's throat went dry. She had spent weeks documenting Madison's failures in secret, her notebook filling with every lie and broken promise. Now, here was a board member telling her the same thing. The truth mattered, but timing mattered more. She straightened in her chair, meeting Evelyn's gaze. If the time comes, I won't stay silent. Evelyn nodded once, sharply, as though sealing an unspoken pact. Good. Then be patient. Keep records. Let Madison dig her own grave. When the board is ready to move, we'll need someone inside operations to pull back the curtain. That someone is you. Lauren exhaled slowly. For the first time in weeks, the weight on her chest lifted, just slightly. She wasn't imagining it. She wasn't crazy. The injustice wasn't invisible. She had an ally. When Lauren returned to the operations floor, Madison was perched on the edge of Sarah's desk, laughing too loudly at something trivial. The sight of her, basking in unearned glory, no longer made Lauren's stomach twist. Because now, she wasn't just enduring. She was waiting. Waiting for the cracks to widen, for the board to turn, for the moment Madison's facade collapsed under its own weight. As Lauren sat at her desk, she opened her leather notebook, pen scratching across the page. More dates. More promises. More evidence. This wasn't survival anymore. This was preparation. Madison thought she was untouchable. Richard thought family could shield him forever. But storms don't last. And when the reckoning came, Lauren would not just endure it. She would lead it. Lauren had always been a woman of precision. Numbers lined up neatly under her pen, reports balanced flawlessly, projects delivered with the reliability of clockwork. But now her precision had a new purpose. She was building a case. Every morning before the office filled, she opened her leather-bound notebook and wrote. Dates, deadlines, promises, failures. Every reckless commitment Madison made. Every email where she shifted blame. Every client call salvaged at the last second. It was no longer just documentation. It was ammunition. And she wasn't hiding it anymore. When Peter or Sarah stopped by her desk late at night, she didn't shoo them away. She let them see her pages, the meticulous record she kept. At first, their eyes widened, shocked at how much she had gathered. But then their expressions hardened, a quiet resolve taking root. You're not the only one keeping notes, Peter admitted one evening, sliding a spreadsheet across her desk. I've been logging the financial fallout of her mistakes. It's ugly. Sarah leaned in, her voice hushed. And I've been saving client emails. Half of them are furious. If the board sees this, Madison won't survive it. For the first time, Lauren felt less alone. Her quiet rebellion had grown into a network, invisible but strong. Madison, of course, sensed the shift. She may have been incompetent, but she wasn't blind. By midweek, she was prowling the office like a cornered animal, her smile sharper, her tone colder. She began copying Richard on every email she sent, no matter how trivial. She called sudden meetings, asking for status updates with the thinly veiled intent of catching Lauren off guard. But Lauren never faltered. Her answers were crisp, her data airtight. And that only made Madison angrier. She's undermining me, Madison hissed one evening in Richard's office, loud enough for passing assistants to overhear. She thinks she runs the department. People listen to her more than they listen to me. Richard leaned back in his chair, weary. The tension lines around his mouth had deepened in recent weeks. Numbers were slipping, whispers in the boardroom had grown louder. Madison, he said carefully, Lauren is competent. You'd do well to use her, not fight her. Madison's eyes blazed. If she wants to be useful, she should learn her place. Richard rubbed his temples. He was tired of the conflict, but he wasn't ready to admit the truth. Not yet. Meanwhile, Lauren was everywhere. Quiet, steady, impossible to ignore. When clients called in panic over missed deliverables, she calmed them with clarity. When staff grew restless under Madison's erratic leadership, she guided them back to focus. She didn't need a title, her authority came from results. And people noticed. In the break room, whispers changed. She's the one holding this place together. If Lauren leaves, we're all screwed. Madison can't last. Not with her running the show. Lauren never acknowledged the murmurs, but she felt them. They were fuel. Then came the board inquiry. Late Thursday, Evelyn Grant summoned Richard to a closed-door session. The boardroom was hushed, its long tables surrounded by stern faces and silent judgment. Charts and reports lay scattered, many of them highlighting cracks in operations. Richard, Evelyn said coolly, the numbers don't lie. Operations has been unstable for months. Clients are complaining. Deadlines are slipping. Investors are nervous. Richard's jaw tightened. It's a period of adjustment. Madison is new. Madison is failing, another board member interrupted bluntly. And everyone knows it. The only reason the department hasn't collapsed is because of Lauren Tran. Richard's face hardened. Lauren is capable, yes. But this company is about more than numbers. It's about family. Legacy. Evelyn leaned forward, her gaze sharp as glass. Legacy doesn't pay shareholders, Richard. Competence does. The words hung in the air like a gavel strike. Richard left the meeting grim-faced, his certainty shaken. For the first time, doubt gnawed at him. That night, Madison stormed into the operations floor, fury simmering just beneath her polished exterior. The office was nearly empty, but Lauren was still at her desk, binder open, pen scratching notes. Madison stopped in front of her, arms crossed. You think you're clever, don't you? Everyone whispering in corners, everyone praising you while pretending I'm not in the room. Lauren looked up slowly, her gaze calm, steady. I don't need whispers, Madison. I have results. Madison's jaw clenched. You're trying to make me look weak. Lauren closed her binder with deliberate care. You don't need my help for that. For a moment, silence stretched, sharp as a blade. Then Madison spun on her heel and stalked out, her heels striking the floor like gunshots. Lauren leaned back in her chair, exhaling. She had crossed a line tonight, and she knew it. There was no going back to silence. But she didn't regret it. Because now, the war was no longer hidden. It was open. Madison was unraveling. Richard was under pressure. And Lauren? She was ready. The collapse began quietly, like a hairline crack in glass. For weeks, Madison had been overpromising to Solara Tech aggressive delivery dates. Unchecked expansions. Empty reassurances. And for weeks, Lauren had been patching over the cracks, scrambling to keep the illusion intact. But illusions can only hold for so long. On a rain-slick Thursday morning, Solara's CEO sent a blistering email to the Coalstone board. Missed deliverables, wasted resources, broken trust. The account, the contract worth millions, was gone. The operations department buzzed with shock. People whispered in hushed voices, their eyes darting nervously toward Madison's glass-walled office. Inside, Madison paced like a trapped animal, phone pressed to her ear, her voice sharp with desperation. We can fix this. Just give us another chance. A pause. No, please, she slammed the phone down, her face white with fury. By afternoon, the board had called an emergency session. The boardroom felt different this time, charged, dangerous. The long mahogany table gleamed under the cold lights. Every chair was filled. Richard sat at the head, his jaw tight, his expression unreadable. Madison perched beside him, her blazer too crisp, her smile too fragile. Lauren sat midway down the table, her binder in front of her, the leather notebook tucked discreetly inside. She hadn't been invited to speak, but she knew her moment was coming. Evelyn Grant opened the session with no ceremony. Colleagues, we've lost Solara Tech. This is a catastrophic failure for operations and for Coldstone as a whole. A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Madison shifted in her seat, her smile plastered in place. Richard cleared his throat. This is a setback, yes, but every company. A setback. Evelyn's voice cut like a blade. Richard, this is negligence. Your niece assured us this account was secure. She promised results she couldn't deliver. Madison leaned forward, her voice honeyed. With respect, Evelyn, the market is volatile. No one could have anticipated. Enough, another board member snapped. We've seen the emails. You made commitments you couldn't keep. You gambled with one of our biggest accounts. The room fell silent. Madison's face tightened, but she forced a brittle laugh. Well, I suppose Lauren could have managed the execution better. She was leading the day-to-day. And there it was. The grenade tossed across the table. Lauren felt every eye turn toward her. Her pulse thudded. Her hands trembled beneath the table, but her face remained calm. She had been waiting for this. Slowly, deliberately, she opened her binder. She pulled out the leather notebook, its pages thick with weeks of evidence. If I may, she said, her voice steady. Richard frowned. Lauren, this is a board-level discussion. She's part of it, Evelyn interrupted. Let her speak. Lauren rose, her notebook in hand. She opened it to the first page, her pen strokes neat and merciless. 3 weeks ago, Madison promised Solara Tech full integration in 3 weeks. I advised against it. Here are the notes from that meeting with Madison's signature. She flipped the page. On week 2, she approved untested processes. Emails to confirm, here. Another page. Client complaints documented, ignored. Promises made without feasibility checks. Every misstep, recorded, dated, verified. She laid the notebook flat on the table, her voice rising. I've carried this department for months. I've fixed what could be fixed. But this collapse was inevitable because Madison made promises she could never keep. And Richard allowed it. The room erupted in murmurs. Some board members leaned forward, scanning the evidence. Others exchanged sharp glances. Richard's face reddened. Lauren. She turned to him, her voice cutting through the noise. You silenced every warning. You dismissed every risk. You told me loyalty mattered more than truth. And now the company is paying the price. Silence fell. Heavy. Final. Madison's composure shattered. She's lying, she shouted, rising to her feet. She's jealous. She's always been jealous. She wants my position. Lauren looked at her calmly, her binder still open, her notebook spread across the table like a verdict. I don't want your position, Madison. I want the truth. And now everyone sees it. The board members nodded grimly. Evelyn spoke, her voice like steel. Richard, this can't continue. The company cannot survive nepotism at the expense of competence. Richard sat frozen, his face carved with anger and shame. For the first time, his power seemed smaller, his authority fractured. When the meeting adjourned, Madison stormed out, her heels striking the floor like gunshots. Richard lingered, shoulders slumped, his legacy crumbling around him. Lauren gathered her notebook, her heart pounding, but her expression calm. She had spoken the truth. She had ripped the facade wide open. But as she left the boardroom, a question gnawed at her. What came next? The war was not over. The reckoning had only begun. The fallout was immediate. By the next morning, whispers had spread from the boardroom to every corner of Coldstone Enterprises. Madison Cole's name was on everyone's lips, no longer in admiration, but in disbelief. The niece who had been paraded as the future of the company was now the face of its most humiliating failure. Her office door, once a symbol of unearned power, stayed closed all day. Employees passed by quietly, some smirking, others shaking their heads. When she finally emerged, her face pale and lips tight, no one greeted her. The air around her was cold, isolated. By noon, an official memo landed in every inbox. Effective immediately, Madison Cole has resigned her position as head of operations. Lauren read it twice, her pulse steady. There was no mention of her name, no acknowledgement of the truth she had delivered. But she didn't need it. Everyone already knew. The real surprise came later that afternoon. The board called another emergency session, this time without Madison. Richard Cole sat alone at the head of the table, his shoulders heavy, his once commanding presence dulled. He tried to defend himself, talk of loyalty, of family, of legacy, but the words rang hollow. "We trusted you," Evelyn Grant said coldly. "And you betrayed that trust. You endangered the company by protecting your niece over the truth. Your judgment is compromised, Richard." Effective immediately, the board is voting to remove you as CEO. The gavel might as well have fallen. Richard's jaw tightened, but he didn't protest. Perhaps he knew the fight was over. Perhaps he knew he had lost not just his position, but the very respect that had built his empire. By evening, another memo circulated. Richard Cole will be stepping down as CEO of Colestone Enterprises. Interim leadership will be announced shortly. The empire he had built was no longer his. The office felt like a battlefield after a storm. Desks cluttered with unfinished projects, whispers drifting through the hallways, employees unsure what tomorrow would bring. But one name kept rising in those whispers. Lauren. She was the one who had saved Brookfield, salvaged Solara as long as anyone could, and finally stood in the boardroom to expose the truth. She was the one who had carried operations when leadership failed. By the end of the week, Evelyn herself approached her. "You know the board will need stability," Evelyn said, her voice measured. "The department needs a leader. You've already been doing the work. The question is, do you want the title?" Lauren sat in silence, her leather notebook resting on the table between them. For years, this had been her dream. The promotion, the recognition, the corner office with the view of the city skyline. Now it was hers for the taking. But the dream felt different now. Smaller. She thought of the endless nights spent saving projects that others had destroyed. The sacrifices, the birthdays missed, the friendships faded. She thought of how easily the company had betrayed her, how quickly Richard had dismissed her worth. Was this still what she wanted? Or was it time to walk away and build something where her name wasn't erased, where her worth wasn't measured against someone else's bloodline? Lauren closed her notebook and met Evelyn's gaze. "I'll think about it." That night, she stood by the tall glass windows of the 27th floor, the city glittering below. The office behind her was silent, empty. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to breathe without the weight of expectation pressing down. Madison was gone. Richard had fallen. The empire of favoritism had crumbled. And yet, the real victory wasn't in titles or offices. It was in respect. In the truth finally spoken aloud. In knowing that she had refused to break, no matter how many times they tried to make her. Lauren pressed her hand against the glass, her reflection staring back, tired, strong, unyielding. The future was open now. She could take the title, reshape the company in her image. Or she could leave, carrying her talent to a place that deserved it. Either way, she had already won. Because respect, once earned, could never be stolen.